everyone, I'm Stuart Kavanagh and welcome to the After Extra Time podcast where we talk about the big news, the big games and the big names in the English Premier League. As usual, I'm joined by journalist, Manchester United fan, editor-in-chief of the sportsbank.net, author of Transatlantic Passage, How the Premier League Redefined Soccer in America, Mr. Paul M. Banks. How are you going, Paul?
Good. I'm doing great. Fresh off that USMNT win, which we'll get into more later on the show. But hey, USA.
It was a good win. I might have to head to the USA myself. Maybe pick up a couple of guns while I'm getting my cheeseburgers.
Oh my God. Yeah, you sound kind of Texas actually, though. But yeah, the guns is definitely the number one stereotype about America. I mean, cheeseburgers, Hollywood, that's right up there.
Absolutely. Cheeseburgers is America's gift to the world, a gift that I've received time and time again. Love myself a cheeseburger on occasion.
But you sound a little Southern in that. So, like, you can kind of tell me when the first cup off the rank at the Kylie Minogue concert. I'm going to have a Vegemite sandwich, but you didn't have enough meat off the bone. Walk away with the chocolates.
You sound a bit Byron Bay-ish, where the posh people live. There's a bit of a posh Australian accent, I would say.
Where? What's it called?
Byron Bay. It's where you know Chris Hemsworth is.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, that's where he lives. And I think the High School Musical guy. I don't know his name, but I think he lives there now too.
Well, I've seen him play Knife or Spoony before.
You call that a knife? This.
You call that a knife? That's not a
knife. That's a spoon. Paul, we've got some big things planned for this episode, so why don't we shoot straight into last week's Premier League action with our winners and losers. I'm going to get my winner out there, first cab off the rank, as you that saying you love so much. I'm going to give it to Norwich, who won a huge game. 2-1, I think the game ended up being, which lifted them out of the relegation zone. And as regular listeners would know, a few weeks ago, I put myself out there and I predicted that Norwich won't get relegated, albeit Burnley have about 20 games in hand, so they could still pull them back in with a few victories. But I'm just really glad that Norwich got the win and find themselves out of the relegation zone.
I would like to see them stay up. I think that'd be nice. I'd like to see Newcastle go down instead. And this is, Norwich we're alluding to some of the other. There's a Norwich angle that we'll cover later on this episode. It's I like the fact that you made that prediction, and I think you could be right. And that brings me to what my winner is, because my winner is about making a very bold prediction that yours could come true and may come true, but mine already has.
Absolutely. You were very quick to let me know about that on Twitter too.
I know. I couldn't wait. I was just like, whoa, because they scored right off the bat and got up early and got a jump. There's something about City. I just knew it wasn't going to be a Chelsea or a Liverpool.
Mm-hmm.
That was going to end this insane streak they're on. I knew it was going to be a mid-tabler. And that is why my winner of the week is Southampton FC. As I said in a previous episode, I've got a soft spot for them because I'm on their media mailing list. Someday I'd like to make it to the south coast of England. I've been to England a couple times, not been to that region. Maybe this is the start of something because they got this big result here. They're currently 12th. They probably are not really in contention for a conference league spot or anything. For them, staying up has been a victory, but to finally end that insane streak that Manchester City were on, I had to give Saints my winner of the week.
Okay, great pick, mate. Yep, I did not see that coming. As readers of the Sports Bank will know, I predicted a 9-0 victory for Manchester City. I couldn't have been more wrong. Paul, let's move on to our losers of the week. Do you want to go first, my friend?
Sure. I'm going to go with everyone who watched the opening window on Saturday, because at halftime, they're all cool as straws. Yeah, like the Simpsons soccer episode is right up there with that's widely considered by critics to be one of the best episodes of the series, and people forget that the soccer part at the beginning was just the A block lead in. It was an episode about guns, so it's funny that you mentioned guns in the open, because it was about guns, but it was just like there's Kent Brockman, local TV news guy, is like full back, passes to center holds it, and then it cuts away to the Latin announcers like, full back, passes to center back, holds it. And that's what we had. We had a lot of that on Saturday. So my loser is anybody who tuned into those games and expected to be entertained, because wasn't a beautiful game. It was not fun.
Absolutely. As one of those people, I can 100% confirm that you're absolutely right. And that is a hilarious reference. A lot of my non-soccer loving friends love to use that one on me when I say I'm going home to watch the game or whatever. I'll move along to my loser for the week. I've gone with VAR. There was a couple of absolutely atrocious decisions in the Premier League using VAR, and there have been in some of the international matches too. I'll just quickly reference a couple of them. Today, albeit I haven't seen these, but I just thought it was incredible that this even occurred. Alisson Becker, Liverpool goalkeeper, was playing for Brazil, received 2 red cards on the field that was subsequently overturned by VAR. I just find that a little bit bizarre. The reason I've chosen this as my loser is Diogo Jota for Liverpool against Crystal Palace. Won a penalty that was never a penalty right at the death. Crystal Palace were making a run for stealing a point there. So I was glad that the decision got given. And then the second incident was Harry Kane's goal against Tottenham, being called for offside, changed the game. Well, changed the result anyway. I wouldn't say it changed the game. That was actually a pretty decent game to watch. But it was never offside. That's why VAR is my big loser for the week.
I always love when I call it Liverpool. The other one, from my side, Varchester United.
Yeah, it's definitely fraught at the moment. It's supposed to be making the game better. I just don't think it is.
Well, I'll just say this: no matter what team you root for, in whatever sport, the refs are out to get your team more than any others, always.
Everyone's favorite segment of the show: the clubs, the players, the administrators, the fans. Everyone waits on bated breath to find out who wins the After Extra Time weekly awards. And Paul, I see this week that our goal of the weekend, it's a rare one. It's unanimous.
It's a goal that is not only aesthetically pleasing, is not only fun to watch, but meaningful, as that is the first Premier League goal ever for Josh Sargent. And as we're recording this after a U.S. men's national team victory, just what a special one that was.
What a performance from him. Tremendous player. You can read about him on the sportsbank.net. Tremendous player, great kid. His post-game interview was fantastic to watch. And let's hope he kicks on and kicks a few more goals and keeps Norwich in the Premier League. Congratulations, Josh. You are the winner of the goal of the weekend. Let it take pride of place on your mantelpiece. Next up, we have player of the weekend. And Paul, I'm looking at your pick here, and it looks like there's more plaudits coming Josh Sargent's way.
We don't know who really is going to be the true leader of the line for the USMNT. But for Norwich, we need a real guy who's going to be that clutch, like that real scoring sensation, the guy to get the goal that really matters in order for them to stay up. And maybe Sargent develops into that guy, because he moved over this summer in a highly heralded move. It was, at least here in the States, it was considered a big deal. And like I said, it's a very themed show. Everything is kind of coherent here. We've got all the cylinders clicking. Norwich was your big winner of the week. He took the goal of the weekend. As we get into the end of the season, I think we're going to find that the title race will have been long decided. I think we're going to be dealing with 3 of the 4 Champions League spots are going to be already in hand. Now, the race for the 4th spot could be interesting, could go either way. But the real drama, the most interesting part of this campaign might be who stays up, and the Canaries are going to be a big part of that. And that means that Josh Sargent could be a big part of that.
Even if the Canaries do go down, you know, a solid second half of the season from Sargent could, you know, raise the eyebrows of maybe a team that is staying in the Premier League. Great pick. So congratulations, Josh. 2 awards. This is rare. I haven't gone through and seen how many times this has happened, but you have 2 After Extra Time weekly awards in the same week. My player of the weekend, Paul. I kind of gave him this because he's been on the fringes of an incredibly talented Chelsea squad that has been faltering somewhat in the last 4 to 6 weeks, I suppose. And he scored an incredible goal and was unlucky not to get goal of the weekend. And it's Hakim Ziyech. He's gone from being a fringe player to a player that's really made a difference in the last couple of Chelsea games.
He did move from Ajax on a big money deal. He's considered, there's a lot of hype going into it. He has not found his place. Chelsea is a very, very strange squad. I wrote a piece about how Christian Pulisic has not lived up to the hype and not realized his full potential at Chelsea. And the first comment, or maybe the only comment, was someone who said, you could say the same thing about Timo Werner, Kai Havertz, and Romelu Lukaku. And I would say, well, about Hakim Ziyech as well. Good for him that he's getting it done on the club level, and you got to root for him there for sure.
So Hakim Ziyech, for people who don't know, as Paul mentioned, he signed from Ajax. He was part of that Ajax side that made it all the way to the semi-finals in the Champions League. Lost that incredible semi-final against Tottenham Hotspur. He was a linchpin, their playmaker. He did come over to great fanfare. He's kind of lost in the mix a little bit with Kai Havertz and some of the other players you mentioned, Paul. Yeah, but hopefully he's coming good. What a stroke of luck for Chelsea that he is having a spat with the Moroccan management of the national team and he's able to play. Congratulations, Hakim. You have won player of the weekend. Final one, Paul, is match of the weekend. So I'll choose mine first because I was thoroughly unimpressed with the options that we were given. I chose the Chelsea versus Tottenham game because in a week of mediocre fixtures, I feel like this one stood out to me.
Yeah, that one wasn't all that interesting or exciting. I felt Chelsea kind of dominated like we thought. As loyal listeners of the pod know, we discussed how much Chelsea has dominated that series at Stamford Bridge. But I hear you. I went with Brentford versus Wolverhampton Wanderers because the drone was a big deal. The drone was a social media sensation.
Right. I sorry to interrupt you, but I did see your little note that you put next to the game, and I was racking my brain trying to think, what is it? What is he talking about? The drone. There was 15 minutes of added time or something, wasn't there?
It was. And then after that was done, something went wrong with the official, with the audio or the video, and then he disappeared for a long time. So you had 2 major delays.
Oh, incredible.
And that just really doesn't happen in a Premier League match.
So Brentford and Wolves, I don't think you're going to be lifting any silverware this year. So congratulations. You've won the After Extra Time match of the weekend. And same goes to Chelsea and Tottenham. I feel like that'll probably go in the cleaner's office, though, both of those sides. Well, maybe not Tottenham. Tottenham, it might get a place in the Walk of Fame. But congratulations to all 4 clubs. Couple of great picks there. And that's the After Extra Time weekly awards. Considering that the Premier League's on a winter break / international break, there's not a lot to talk about. So Paul and I have gone back to the future. We're bringing back the football focus. This week we have a very special guest, Mr. Jeremy Ross. Jeremy, it is so great to have you on today's episode. Why don't you introduce yourself to our audience? Let them know how you became a soccer fan and what interests you about the sport.
Thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure chatting with yourself as well as Paul. I've played the sport. Not apparently well enough to make a college team, but played the sport since I was extremely young, many, many years. And as an adult, whenever I can, kick the ball around. I follow international teams in particular. Huge fan of the US. Love Portugal. Have always followed Barcelona as well. But those are kind of the teams that I follow. Also, the Dutch national team as well. I love the game, love the sport. And before the pandemic hit, began collecting vintage soccer cars, which are starting to pick up, which I know we'll talk about a little bit later.
What a roller coaster ride it's been being a Dutch national team fan.
Yeah, growing up, I had neighbors who hailed from Amsterdam. So whenever the World Cup was going on, they would always root for the team. And I loved the colors. I loved the players. They were always so talented. But stateside, they are World Cup's version of the Chicago Cubs. They really are. And they're stocked with talent. They have so much flair and artistry, and the fans are amazing. But they never get it done. Never. Maybe this upcoming year. Who knows?
Yep, maybe Qatar could be the year for the Dutch. So just before we recorded tonight, the United States men's national team took on El Salvador in one of I think it was their 6th last game, their 9th fixture is probably the easiest way to say it, in the octagonal CONCACAF qualifying. Paul, you got some thoughts on the game?
Okay, so you said 6th to last.
I know. What am I doing?
Okay, yeah. Where are no, hold on. Like, guys, like, seriously, none of us know what the fuck it does. Like, they're going to Canada on Sunday, and then they have another match in this window. There's another international break in March in which they have 2 or 3 matches, and then is that it?
Yeah, they've got 3 this window and 3 in the next window, I think.
Okay, what I do know is I looked at the standings, and it really is. It's 4 teams up at the top, and then there's a gap. So this is about making sure you're not in that 4th spot for the playoff position. You want to be in that top 3. That's the gist of it.
And as we talk about the convoluted way of World Cup qualifying, which requires a physicist to explain to the average person out there, because I wanted to just go through like that 4th spot, which could theoretically get you in the World Cup, but then you have to do a playoff game. And was it the winner of the Oceania? Please,
New Zealand.
Take it.
Exactly.
New Zealand.
They'll play New Zealand. Yeah, Australia used to be in the Oceania Confederation, and we used to have to play these fixtures. Now we joined the Asian Confederation. Now New Zealand beats up on the Solomon Islands and Fiji and Papua New Guinea and stuff. So essentially that 4th spot will play New Zealand.
Okay.
And New Zealand is basically your guys' Canada, right?
Yeah. It's Australia a lot. Diet Australia. That's what we call New Zealand.
It's Australian for beer. Like, yeah, it's Australian for Canada.
No, that's not true. New Zealand is fantastic, beautiful country. Don't want to offend any Kiwis that might be listening, and they're really good at rugby too. So let's talk about tonight's game, boys. Let's just get some of your thoughts on what occurred.
Typical U.S. men's national team. They were able to eke it out. They won. It wasn't pretty. It was grinding. I love the fact that you had a defenseman responsible for scoring the game winner. To me, if the U.S. wants to make any noise in the World Cup, and by the way, a victory for the U.S. men's team when they get to the World Cup is just getting out of that first round. All right? Get to the knockout stage, and everyone is just like, yes! We did it! Let's lay out what we believe is the goal here. Because considering that we didn't even qualify last time, it's just make it to the knockout round.
Right, yeah.
Pray to God you're not up against Brazil.
Yeah, I think that's a fair shout. I am quite big on this current generation of the US men's national team. I think they're supremely talented. I think 2022 is probably going to come around a little bit too early for them. But come 2026, when it's US, Mexico, and Canada that's hosting it, they should be up and about.
Yeah, the Neapolitan World Cup, by the way.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The tricolor, the 3 flavors.
There we go. The Neapolitan of all World Cups. No, but it was generally an ugly, grinding game. I do like the fact that the US is not relying on one main star to feed the ball into and score the goal. I think that that's going to be important, even though Christian is amazing. But, for the US to do well, they have to have many people capable of attacking and putting the ball on frame and into the goal. And so far, that's what they've demonstrated. It is about qualifying, and we're on the cusp of doing that. And then from there, developing chemistry. And, I will say I would love to see that score run up, because the competition that they faced is not the level that they're going to see when they hopefully qualify in the World Cup. But it's about surviving, advancing, and developing chemistry and peaking at the right time. Have they peaked too early, particularly against games like Mexico? You could give me an argument about that, but at least that they're gaining a little bit of confidence, and considering the turd that they laid last time, those sorts of moments of wonder are helping lead them towards what I think is a hopeful World Cup run. So we'll see.
Perfectly said, mate. It is great that they do have, they've got not just one big star, they've got many stars in that team. Weston McKennie, Christian Pulisic, Captain America, right? That's what you call him.
Although he hates being called that, but sure.
Right. Sergio Dest, Ricardo Pepe, Matt Turner, who just signed for Arsenal. It's a great squad, and I couldn't agree with your sentiments more. Paul, what do you think of the game, mate?
Well, I think it was really big in that you actually had Weston McKennie, you had Christian Pulisic, you had a lot of the main stars. We're still missing Gio Reyna. We have not really seen what's going to happen when all the golden generation are together. All these young studs, everybody's clicking on the same page, and Jeremy alluded to that. Jeremy brought up chemistry. Let's find out when everyone is there and we've got all cylinders firing. That still has not happened. But tonight was a good example of more of the pieces coming together. Now, they go up to Hamilton. They go up to Ontario. You get a win. You go back top of the table. You close this out for, with this weird, bizarre qualifying system in which you need to be in seniors advanced placement calculus. Find out, but just get there, beat Canada, because the biggest obstacle here is Mexico. I mean, it's a rivalry for a reason, and right now we're dominating that rivalry. So you take care of them, then there isn't too much to worry about. But just close the deal.
Can we talk real briefly about Robinson's game-winning celebration goal?
I was just about to bring up the goal. It was a timely goal. It was an unlikely goal scorer, and I know you have some thoughts on the celebration, Jeremy. Have at it.
Okay. Well, okay. First off, it was a nice one time, and it's not always necessarily about being the most skilled player, but about being the right place, the right time, and getting the right hit, and that's what he had there. Absolutely. On frame, over the ball, perfectly executed. And the celebration to me is what I'd like to take a hard look at, because number one, he stole that from Ozzie Smith. Those of you who remember the great Cardinals shortstop will know the flip. It was perfectly executed, except ... Did you see him reach for his hammy right after?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, it looked like something was messed up with him.
Now, what I think happened here, and I haven't heard a detailed explanation if someone like a reporter asked him, what was up with that celebration? Here's what I think happened. He did it, pulled a hammy, the adrenaline kicked in, and then he's like, I'm fine, just kidding. But I'll tell you, I feel like he did what I think it was referred to on the old Sports Center as a bit of premature ejaculation. And that was the flip celebration, pulling the hammy, and then just being like, I'm okay, but I'm not okay. So I'm curious to see if he winds up on some sort of medical report down the road.
I got to tell you, he will be a very unpopular man with the staff if he misses the Canada game with a tight hamstring.
Without a doubt.
Keep eyes on it. Keep eyes on it.
That's something for everybody to keep an eye out for. My thoughts from the game, being from Australia, it is so humid the last couple of weeks here. It's been 90 plus degrees Fahrenheit. It's just been
Good
relentless.
God.
Honestly, I'm used to it, and it's been too much for me too. I'm
It was
hating
-4 here yesterday. It was -4.
it.
Yes. Yes.
So my point was, I'm watching the game, watching the pregame and stuff on ESPN. It's in Columbus. They showed in the build-up, it's snowing. The crowd was up and about for the game. It was fantastic. And for someone who's sweltering through a summer right now, like you wouldn't believe, I just thought that's fantastic. The extreme weather. I seen some guys that were dressed up. They had America shades on, America boxing gloves on, like a boxing get up with no shirt on and like a silk boxing robe. And it was -1 degree Celsius there. It was below freezing. And these people are still there, getting into the spirit of things. And the atmosphere was tremendous. I thought it was great.
This might shock you. Columbus, Ohio is not known for its Nobel Prize winners.
Yeah. Michigan man threw it.
Take that, Ohio State.
I've said, anybody who follows me and knows me, of all the different fan bases that I've had clashes with, not just in social media, but in real life too. Like, the most annoying fan base I've ever encountered, both on Twitter and in real life, is Ohio State. So any Michigan man, welcome, please let loose. Absolutely. Those people are batshit crazy. My God.
Yes.
Bit of the old college rivalries coming up there. My last point I want to make was about the debutant tonight, Jesus Ferreira. The young fella was he was out there for about 60 minutes. He had a couple of great opportunities to score. Unfortunately, he flubbed his lines a little bit. Maybe the moment got to him. But I just thought it was encouraging that he was in the right place. Like you mentioned, Jeremy, it's about being in the right place at the right time. He found himself in the right place. And I think he had an encouraging debut. And with Ricardo Pepi having moved to Germany, and starting is not guaranteed for him. And with the World Cup coming up in 10 months' time, it's always good to have a backup option.
I went ahead and looked at the forecast, and it looks like it's going to be an air temperature of about 19 with wind chills, single digits, maybe sub-zero for the next game in Hamilton, Ontario on Sunday.
Jesus Christ. Well, I'll tell you what, those Canadians have got a lot to live up to. They need to bring some passion to their support, because the fans were incredible. Great win by the United States. Got some happy co-hosts and a happy guest here. Their country looks like they're going to make it to the World Cup. But the reason we've got Jeremy on is he's somewhat of a vintage soccer card connoisseur.
That was so eloquently said.
Thank you.
That was a great intro. Yeah, no, thank you. Pre-pandemic, I would say probably about I want to say 2017, 2018. I started, regressing in terms of my maturity level, and decided that I would start sort of collecting, vintage playing cards and whatnot. And I started getting into old soccer cards. And a lot of kids in the United States that are about my age, about Paul's age, like when they were growing up, they used to collect a lot of these baseball cards and saying to themselves, oh my goodness, I'm going to make a ton of money and retire on this stuff because everyone's going to want to buy this. And the reality was it never happened. But before the pandemic, I started getting back into that, but I chose soccer. And I'm not exactly sure why, but I started researching some of the old Pele cards and some of the older, amazing English players like, Billy Meredith, Steve Bloomer, Dixie Dean, just to name a few of those greats, and some of the wonderful Spanish players and whatnot. And I just started getting into it. And it was wonderful because the great thing about collecting cards, especially the way that I go about it, is that it's not just an interest in history and history of the game, because the game has had such amazing history and players, and not just linear, but you'll have region and international players, country players like Johan Cruyff, over in the Netherlands. And so I started getting into the individual players, and what made it kind of like magical and amazing is that I started collecting like extremely old issues. Like here is Ricardo Zamora. He of course Spanish national right there, and great player, I believe Barcelona, if I'm not mistaken. This is from 1920, and
Wow.
it was actually an advertisement. And so the Spanish had these wonderful cards. Here's another example of Zamora, which actually is almost comical and weird. I have no idea.
God, that's so bizarre.
It looks like
Super
a playing
bizarre.
card a little bit.
It actually is, and so I have enough Spanish knowledge and background to be dangerous, but they issued
Muy peligroso.
Exactly. Su madre buscas en la salsa de tomate. Your mother scuba dives in tomato sauce. But, I have no idea what's going on here, but legendary goaltender, one of the greats, along with Lev Yashin or Jashin, depending on your pronunciation. But I started getting into the history, and some of this stuff, like it's just really tiny art when you really think about it. Here's actually one of the more prized possessions that I have. This is Billy Meredith, one of the first Manchester United stars. And if you take a real close look there, he literally looks like anyone that you think existed in 1901.
Absolutely. That was actually my first thought when I looked at it. I thought just some guy from the 1900s. Yeah.
Exactly. So these were issued in tobacco, so cigarettes. And, so this is, of course, immediately an advertisement for all kids to start smoking. Meredith, part of amazing history that also includes this guy, Dixie Dean, who's referred to as the Babe Ruth of old-time soccer. Approximately 1924-25 right there. This is actually a metal card.
Oh, wow. How interesting. How common is that? Yeah. Metal.
Yeah, it's pretty uncommon. And I assume that it's obviously pre-war, because who the hell would produce metal cards during the war era? Because they would rather probably, I don't know, use that for armor.
Yep.
Or tanks, because that would be important during that time. But of course, an Everton legend, Dixie Dean, and referred to as the Babe Ruth of soccer.
Yeah,
and then,
I saw his statue outside Goodison Park in 2016. I got a good photo of the Dixie Dean. I know what you're talking about. Yeah. Yes.
And so I kind of started getting into that, and the reason why I like you so much is that collectors often want rookie cards, and that's the oldest example of the player when he first got into the league. Mm-hmm. Those are considered the most prized possessions. And in soccer, unlike, I guess, baseball, football, hockey, which other people collect, you could have rookie cards in multiple nations. So Pele, for instance, has, a distinct Brazilian rookie card. And then he has one that's strictly German, one that's actually East German. Wow. And then one that's Italian, and they're all really wonderful, particularly because of the vintage, the age. Some of them are Art Deco in nature, like some of the Zamora cards that you have from like the wonderful chocolates they were issued in, which many of the Spanish cards were. A lot of the Italian cards that are around, particularly from the 60s and late 60s, issued in like some sort of candy, bubble gum as well. Mm-hmm. But they're really wonderful, artfully done. Here's the final Antiques Roadshow moment here.
I'm enjoying myself, so keep it going.
There you go. Yeah. So that's Robert Charlton, aka Bobby Charlton.
Yes.
And of course, exactly. Mm-hmm. And what I love is especially about some of the English cards, is they really have this love affair with caricatures.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. That's brilliant.
You see that?
Right.
Yeah,
Like he's
yeah.
at a boardwalk at a carnival or something.
Exactly.
That's fantastic.
I feel like all we need is like some cotton candy and maybe some like overpriced alcohol. But it's just it's again like, yes, it's nerdy, but I will argue that it's a piece of history. Many of them, particularly soccer cards, because of the different nations that you're talking about, some of the artists that they use, they're little pieces of art. And I will tell you that if you're a wise and smart collector, like I collect part for the aesthetic, for the art, and also part because, some of these are actually valuable.
Mm-hmm.
Never a terrible thing. Some people have made fortunes over the pandemic buying, selling, flipping some of the more rare wanted cards. And, I have seen the type of returns, thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars during the pandemic, because the demand has actually increased exponentially because people have nothing to do.
Yep.
Except be nerds. So.
Well, you might say that it's nerdy, and it might well be nerdy. This kind of nerdum will always be welcome on this podcast. That's fantastic. I don't really know about soccer cards. All I know is when the World Cup comes out, you can get your Panini sticker collection. I might have a couple of those at my mum's place from when I was a young fella. But yeah, that's incredible. That's a Bobby Charlton one with the caricature on the back. Incredible.
And that's just it's just literally, it's the tip of the iceberg. You had these wonderful art and artists designing a lot of these cards. Again, particularly a lot of the English issues will have artwork like that. And it is wonderful. It is marvelous. And they just don't do it like that anymore. I will tell you, by the way, that the 1970 Panini cards that were issued for the World Cup, there's a few different versions, but they're extremely valuable. And if you come across one of those booklets, probably sell it for anywhere between $5,000 to $7,000.
Wow, that's incredible.
Right?
Damn.
Jeez.
Right?
My goodness.
Check your parents' basements, guys. Check it.
So do you mind if I ask about some of the more valuable ones that you've come across?
Because nerds always gather together, there are various Facebook groups and Discords out there. And, one of the, I have a friend of mine in New York who for, I want to say 2 decades has invested in finding the rarest of the rare Peles. And he lives in a tiny Manhattan apartment and is sitting on probably millions of dollars worth of cards.
Really?
And he just said to me, he's like, one of these days you probably should insure my stuff. I'm like, yeah, that's a good idea, dude.
Wow.
He was able to sell these 1958 Alpha Ballet cards, which actually originate in Sweden. And I believe that a very rough translation, Alpha Ballet, and my Swedish is not good, but they were sold in these pastel type of like boxes. So I think that essentially it was like crayons or chalk. And they were issued for the World Cup in 1958, which I believe was played in Sweden. And at that time, like you didn't have a typical format. It's like, hey, this really good team gets to play the host country. Man, wouldn't that be sweet? Oh, looks like anyway. So you would go through a tournament, and then the winner got to play Sweden, and of course Brazil just kicked their ass. But a young guy named Pele happened to be on that team, and these cards issued. My friend in New York was able to get 3 of the most pristine cards, and he bought them for a few $1,000s, sold them to a guy who's a retired investment banker who lives in Hawaii. Sweet gig if you can get it, by the way. And so he sold them for, I want to say like 30, 40, 50 grand. Okay. So imagine, paying a few $100 and then making that.
Yeah. Wow.
And then the guy in Hawaii turns around during the pandemic, sells one of those for I think just shy of $500,000.
Well, it's really good to hear an investment banker, have a story with a happy ending, Way to root for the little guy, So rare.
Exactly. If that guy could only catch a break.
Yeah.
That's phenomenal. I had no idea that there was that kind of money in cards. Yeah, incredible.
It's an issue of supply and demand. It's an issue of obviously how good the player is. And then I want to say that there were some other cards that I recently saw. There was a Johan Cruyff issue, which was from Portugal, which is one of his very first cards. And I saw some of those going for like tens of thousands of dollars and up. And, I've had friends who purchased those cards, which actually are stickers, for like maybe 100, 150. Wow. So, yeah, I mean, as an investment, it's out there. And I think that Paul and I have discussed this in the past. Like a lot of stuff in the economy right now, it's safe to say that it's pretty inflated.
Yeah.
So who knows how long this lasts? But as I like to say, interest in soccer, whether it's through collectibles or otherwise, always enhances the game. So I welcome it.
Right. I do think a correction is coming. I think it's inevitable. I think a lot of people know that. I've got two questions for you. Number one, just a simpler question. What part of Michigan are you from? Because I know, I thought you were from a Detroit suburb, but I know that
Correct.
There's so much Dutch influence, and I think about how you got into the Dutch national team. Then number two, fill Stewie and our listeners in about your FBI experience.
Yes. Real quick about the Dutch influence there. We actually we do have a Dutch and Polish communities, particularly I want to say south of Detroit. And so a lot of those communities will gather there. I will tell you that internationally, particularly in Detroit, because of the automotive sector, they will draw a lot of their talent internationally. So a lot of them will come to some of the suburbs, including Farmington, West Bloomfield, which is where I'm from. And that's actually how I met that family and how I got into the World Cup, and also, of course, rooting for the Dutch national side, which again, traditionally crashes and burns, but it's all about the journey,
right,
and not the end. Now, about the FBI story, which, by the way, if you want to get involved with the FBI, this was not the worst way. At least this didn't end in a shootout or me hiding in Mexico. So anyways, I bought a card through a dealer on eBay. And like the Bobby Charlton here, it was encased and graded by one of the graders, PSA in this particular case. And I got it, and it was one of those cards that I've been chasing for a while. It was the 1948 American football card, Slingin' Sammy Baugh, who's one of the quarterback legends of yesteryear. And I got an email, I want to say like many months later. And it was, we have recently been made aware that a seller that we had helped facilitate a sale with is under investigation by federal authorities. And we would appreciate you turning your card back in.
Oh, wow.
Right.
Yeah. Geez.
And so to make a long story less convoluted and a little bit shorter, it sounded like the seller was accused of partnering up with a bad actor in a grading company to enhance or alter cards so they would look better than what they actually were, which technically is fraud. And that's why the FBI was part of it. And for legal reasons, I am not accusing PSA of any wrongdoing, criminal or otherwise, but I was just contacted as part of their investigation. So I had to turn the card back in. I got my money back, And I did get to speak to an FBI agent who somewhere in the Chicago office sits a alleged fraudulent Sammy Baugh card amongst many other collectibles, baseball, football, basketball, hockey, and otherwise. So if you picture that scene from Indiana Jones where they kind of like close the Ark of the Covenant and it sort of pans out,
Yeah.
you see these boxes. That's what I imagine is there. It's definitely not. But the FBI agent was like, "You're not the only one, Ross." So very interesting deal there.
Yeah,
All right,
wow.
so it wasn't black helicopters flying over and agents, knocking down your door at 6 a.m.
Exactly. Mulder and Scully.
That's an incredible story, man. I
thank
like
you.
to imagine that there's a collectibles division of the fraud department at the FBI. Is that
Yes.
is that accurate, or is this just a?
You know what? I'll tell you what. I know that they do have, and I believe it is the FBI, but sir, I will say, as a broad umbrella term, I will say I believe that there are federal law enforcement that do oversee cases like that because it is an act of fraud.
Mm-hmm.
And the most notorious, not to get into a whole spiel, is the most valuable card collectible, Honus Wagner, which is a tobacco card as well, which you may have heard of as well in passing, but sells for millions of dollars now. The most notorious example of that was a case in which the card was bought by the owner of the LA Kings at the time, and then hockey great Wayne Gretzky. And it was bought at auction for, I want to say, like hundreds of thousands of dollars, and it was billed at the time
$451,000 in 1991.
Yes, it was billed as the most perfect, highly prized baseball card collectible of its time. And the reason that it was so perfect after the investigation was this guy got a hold of the Honus Wagner, which was a tobacco card. And back in 1900, they didn't have a really uniform way of cutting cards. So it was slightly oversized. So what he did was he just sort of shaved it, which made it more perfect. And the FBI, I believe it was the FBI that caught up with him. And so the scheme is as old as the hobby itself. And there are always people looking to cut corners. So you just got to be careful. And as any investor needs to be careful. So
cut corners literally and figuratively.
Literally.
That's fascinating, Jeremy. I'm glad we had you on. Those cards look incredible, by the way. The Bobby Charlton one is wild, and that metal one, I've never seen anything like that before. Before we wrap this section up about the cards, though, I know Paul's got a little section he wants to take away all by himself, so I'm gonna just step back and let you guys take the floor.
Either buy, sell, hold, or valuation. Perhaps what should I get? So let's start right here. 2020 Topps Borussia Dortmund PSA 10 Erling Haaland rookie card.
Ooh. Man, I'll tell you, like whenever I hear that name and see that name, people just start throwing money in the air.
This guy, Erling Haaland, actually averages, I think it's 0.89 goals per game in his professional career. Almost a goal per game for a soccer player. It's incredible. I
feel like you consider putting it on the eBay, and you start off at like $199.95 and you let it ride.
I'd like to get 500.
I think you can. I think you definitely can. Let those let those dudes just bid it up. So, I mean, if, like you say, you think that everything is overinflated and we're headed for a crash, might as well put the seatbelt on and get what you can while you can.
But part of me says, let's see who he signs with. If he goes to a bigger club, bigger name, raises his profile, maybe I hold that for a couple of years.
That's right. I feel like the same advice was given for Mark McGuire and Jose Canseco rookies. By the way, that's got to be the nerdiest joke on the podcast that ever has been said. So my apologies.
I think it's spot on, but we'll move on to a 2019. I mean, something to think about. I've got decisions to make. 2019-20 Panini Prism Premier League, number 30, Christian Pulisic. Now, I don't know what HGA is as a grading service. Hybridgrading.com.
Home and Garden Association.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you just make that grading company up?
No, yeah, I did. I ran an algorithm. I just took a bunch of letters together, and I took a bunch of buzzwords, and yeah, hybridgrading.com. I don't know what the hell that is, but it is a 9, and it's Pulisic.
I feel like we should start a company, Blockchain Slabs.
Board Ape NFT, yeah, like
yes, to the moon. Again, put it on the eBay and let it ride, man. But you know that I'm a vintage guy, so like the stuff you're showing me, I'm like, I'm not going to be bidding on. But there's so many other people out. Like I have seen some of those cards. Oh gosh, like some of those cards out there, like some of the newer players. And depending on the rarity of the card, like I've seen them like thousands of dollars, and for a 10, like tens of thousands of dollars. I have no idea who would actually buy that, but those are numbers that exist in real life.
Just want to interject real quickly here. When you guys are saying 9, 10, is this like what is it grading exactly, like the condition of the card?
Yep. Well said, actually, and my apologies for not bringing my nerd nomenclature down to normal level. Generally, grading systems work on a scale of 1 to 10. And as I like to say, 1s are typically bad in the soccer world because, as many people will know, when you have Panini cards, you're taught to take off the sticker or just stick them in an album. So very often, you'll find cards that are 1s because the back is damaged. So that's not uncommon. It's very rare to find cards that are 8, 9, and 10 because the grading companies tend to not give those out. So Paul's card that he showed at the very beginning, generally speaking, pretty tough.
Wow.
So yeah.
Right. And I know we're up against it. We're running out of time. So I've only got 3 cards left, only one of which is graded. Now, when I bought this in July, I know I talked to you about this. I'm sure I did. We were at the national convention together in Rosemont. I was very excited. Now I have a lot of buyer's remorse because this investment has not panned out too well. Jadon Sancho, 2018 Donruss rated rookie. It is a PSA 10, however. So
yeah, you know what? I feel like that's a good paperweight.
He's still got time to turn his career around. He's still got time.
I mean, honestly, like you can put him in your bicycle spokes and it'll make a cool noise.
Yo, brutal. You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
Your card might be worthless, but you worked for it. And that says something.
So with that in mind,
yeah. Let me have
I don't know. Are we gonna pile on Jadon Sancho anymore? I mean, you might as well. I mean, in for a penny, in for a pound, right?
Even his mom is disappointed at this point, man.
In terms of minimal investment, this was they were opening. There was what is the term again for opening packs or opening a case?
It's a break.
A break, yeah. Thank you. So there was a break, and I pulled this Giovanni Reyna rookie card, Topps Chrome. Now it is ungraded, but it is straight out of a pack. So, given his injury, this is obviously the time to hold. But do you think that thing has any potential?
Anytime that they market something with silver, bronze, or gold, it must be worthy. Is that kind of with the fancy numbers in the back, by the way? Like 1 of like 732?
Well, that's a perfect transition. Thank you for bringing that up, because that is what we have right here. with a Serginho Des. This is number 10 of only 150, and it is autographed. And this is the Topps finest.
Again, man, you put that up on auction, you never know. His brother might be like, I have to collect all my brother's cards, and before you know it, you have $3,000.
I can get $3,000 for that. Wow.
Exactly. You might as well just put like Jeremy Ross, contemporary player card collector hater on the bottom of the screen right there. I feel like a grumpy old man. So,
well, I mean, you're not wrong in the sense that like nowadays there's so many brands, there's so many different. It's like, let's put a jersey, let's put an autograph, let's put like a grain of sand from the pitch, or like there's so many different layers and levels. And like that Gio Reyna card, I've seen that there's 3 or 4 different colors for that. And back in your day, old man that you are, it was just one brand and that's it.
Exactly. When I was a boy, when we walked uphill both ways in a meteor shower to get to school.
I just want to
5 bees for a quarter. Back in those days, quarters had pictures of bumblebees on them. Give me 5 bees for a quarter, you say.
I do have a question about one of Paul's cards there. That Erling Haaland one, you said it was graded a 10, Paul, is that right?
It is. It's a PSA 10.
Okay, so say Paul holds on to that until he's in his 80s, right? And Erling Haaland goes on, he continues the trajectory and becomes the most incredible soccer player the world's ever seen. Is there anything that's similar to that that's out there now? Like, what could he expect if he held on to it for 40 years?
Here's the crazy thing about a lot of the newer players and investments is, like when I was growing up, there was a great baseball player, fantastic baseball player named Don Mattingly. And everyone thought that this is going to be the next great Yankee. And he was an excellent player. And maybe one day he'll make it in the Hall of Fame. But I remember, because when you're taking a look at essentially a snapshot of someone's career rather than sort of the full spectrum of, when he begins, his prime, and then, the conclusion, it's so hard to gauge because, again, you only have a little slice or that snapshot perspective. So I cheat because I collect like all the absolute greats. And what Paul is doing is he's trying to invest like at the very beginning. And I guess almost akin to like CrowdStrike or, some of like those companies that are just starting out on the stock market or young companies that their trajectory is to the moon. And that's kind of where Paul is right now. And he's positioned really well. So if he becomes, the next Ronaldo, which is on track.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, he's looking at a card that's 10 grand and up. The problem is between now and the end of his career, terrible things can happen. So,
yeah. I get you.
Fingers crossed, Paul.
Thank you. I think the best that I like your analogies. I like everything you're saying. I think another way I'd look at it, I did hear a guy at the National say this, and I was like, oh my God, the answer's so obvious. It's right there in front of us. He said, only collect Borussia Dortmund. Because that's what they do. They get these starlets, they get these teenagers, and then they sell them when they're 23, 24, 25 to the giant clubs. And they buy a guy for about 5, 6, 7 million pounds, sell him for like 80, 90, 100 million. And as the cards I've listed are BVB guys, but it's the same concept for sure.
If that's the rule for buying new soccer cards, I'm not a cards guy, Paul. Look out for a Jude Bellingham Birmingham City rookie card then. That would be the one to get. He's the next big thing by all accounts.
Yeah, good call.
All right, Jeremy, thanks so much for joining us. Your knowledge on cards, your nerddom is very welcome. Anytime you want to come back to After Extra Time and, just school us a little bit on some vintage cards and, let us know what's happening in the world of soccer cards. That'd be fantastic. For now, though, is there anything that you'd like to plug just to let all our listeners know about?
Read Paul's book.
If the Erling Haaland card investment doesn't work out, I could get rich and retire off book royalties. So that works out.
Fantastic. Like I said, thanks, Jeremy. It was great having you on. Hopefully we can have you back on another time.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Paul, mate, as usual, it has been an absolute pleasure. Have you got anything going on that you want to let all our listeners know about?
Yes, please go to thesportsbake.net and check out the story I did on the Illinois Holocaust Museum. Go to chicagonow.com as well. They opened a new exhibit today. It's a virtual reality exhibit that takes the visitor back to Auschwitz, as today is International Holocaust Remembrance Day. Formally recognized by the United Nations, it's the anniversary of the day that Auschwitz was liberated. The very somber, very serious article was a chance for me to get out of my comfort zone of sports writing and do something a little more depth, a little more meaning. I wrote it on both sites. So please check out both of those links when you get the chance. And if you're in the area, go to Skokie and check out the museum as well.
We'll drop the link in the episode notes so people can find it also. So if you're interested in having a read of that, just look in the episode notes and we'll have the link there for you. Thanks a lot, Paul. Fantastic. That's it for another episode of After Extra Time. Be sure to follow us at our account at @AfterET_podcast. Be sure to get all your latest football news at thesportsbank.net. And last but not least, show the third member of the pod some love by following @OtisGingerTabby on Insta. But until next week, that's Jeremy Ross. He's Paul Banks. I'm Stuart Kavanagh. And this has been After Extra Time.